Good morning, good morning, good morning, and good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Preaching in the Park. I'm your host, Minister Jonathan Simmons, and we thank God for those of you who are watching us here on the live broadcast. We thank you so much for watching, and we thank you so much for all of you guys who do this each and every week. And it's a blessing here to be in the land of the living. Amen. Because so many people are suffering right now, so many people are going through with our new surge of COVID-19. But we thank God that we are here and able to be with you this morning, bright and early on this Sunday morning, December the 5th, December the 6th, first Sunday in the month of December, the final month of the year. Hard to believe that 2020 has now come to an end. I know for so many of those of you who are watching this broadcast, 2020 has been just a bear. I mean, really, for even people not watching this broadcast, 2020 came in a way that we all thought that it was going to be a banner year for us. So many slogans, 2020, some of the slogans that we had out in various churches and other places about 2020 means, hey, a clearer vision, a sharper focus, looking at these things that would be a transition to some respect to our new position in lives. But for some of us, 2020 was kind of the opposite. It was difficult. It was a time of transition in a bad way, a transition away from jobs. So many people lost their jobs. People lost loved ones. And so, interesting this morning when I thought about what I should talk to you about very briefly this morning is the idea of mourning. And in my conversation with people, I often explain to them that nobody can basically put a timetable on their mourning, because we don't know what God is trying to accomplish in that hour, in that time with you. So we just want to be cognizant of the fact that mourning affects everybody differently. But one thing we do want to do is we start each and every broadcast, each time we do a ministry broadcast, is to remind you that this, put the wrong scripture up. Here we go. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. That's Psalms 118 and 24. And that's something we're going to do regardless of the circumstance, regardless of what's going on. We are going to remember that this is the day the Lord has made, and we will in fact rejoice and be glad in it. And how can we do that? We can constantly think about the goodness of God and keep our minds stayed on Him, because the scriptures also tell us in the Bible that all those who keep their minds stayed on Thee, who we're talking about, Thee, Jehovah God, maker of heaven and earth, He, God, will keep them in perfect peace. So that's why it's so critical that we each and every day start the day. And again, don't be wrong. I mean, there are days I wake up more than I like to admit. You're sleepy. Sometimes you're tired. As you get older, sometimes your body aches. Even sometimes you're not older. Sometimes you're an athlete. You have aches and pains from football or from the workout from the day before, and you almost don't have the energy to get up and to call it a good day. But we must train our minds. And when I say our, I'm talking about you and me. We should train our minds to each and every day to understand that if the Lord has allowed us to wake up and be in our right mind, be able to move about the country, then we need to rejoice and be glad in that. Let's talk again today about the idea of mourning and the reason why we have to be very, very careful in mourning and in the time frame of mourning, both in terms of letting people dictate to you how long or how short your mourning should be. And then also we have to be careful not that our own selves, our own emotions dictate the length of our mourning. Because we know mourning is a time of sorrow, mourning is a time of difficulty. So we want to always ask God to have Him be our barometer, have Him be our timekeeper as far as how long that we should mourn. Well, first of all, you need to know that mourning is normal. Mourning is natural. And there's nothing negative about the idea of mourning. Mourning means that you suffered a loss. It means that something that was dear and near to you is now gone. In most cases, when you're mourning, it means never to be replaced. And we mourn about a lot of things. The most common one, obviously, is the mourning, the loss of a loved one, a family member, a close friend. All of you have watched this broadcast have in some way, shape, or form had to experience that type of mourning, where you lost, again, someone's very close to you. I know myself. I've lost my mom about 12 years ago. I have lost a good friend, very good friend, probably if not my best friend, second best friend in this world a couple of years ago. So the idea of mourning is common, and most people that are listening to this can say that's the truth, because mourning is something that's common to mankind. the loss. Some of us have had to mourn the loss of our youth. Now as I'm getting older, there are times where I realize there are certain things that I either can't do them at all or I can't do them the way I used to do them. And so there's a sadness. That's why if you ever watch in football or any sport where a top athlete retires, oftentimes he sheds tears, or even she sheds tears. And you say, why are they crying? They're crying because they realize that they shall never pass this way again. Now, I don't care if they played for 20 years. They know that they no longer will be able to go out on the field of endeavor and to do great exploits. And not only that, to be able to be, as so many guys say, be have that camaraderie in the same way with their fellow players. And so there's a mourning, there's a heaviness, there's a sorrow. There's a time of reflection and even being downcast. And it's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. Job, everybody likes to talk about Job, and we like to so quickly quote the scriptures that Job said, which they're true. He said, when he lost all these things, his family members, the home, his wealth, he told his wife initially, operative word initially, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. It talks about, should we only receive the good from the Lord and not the bad? And all those things are true. We have to, in our mind, say to ourselves, hey, you know what? This is life. We can't always have it, a bowl of cherries, roses, on and popping, whatever kind of terminology we want to use to describe a great day. But if we continue to read the book of Job, most of the rest of it, after that early stand of faith, which is critical, Job begins to lament, rightfully so, his situation. And if we go back to the text, when his friends came, operative word there initially, they sat with him for almost a week and said nothing. Why? Because they were mourning along with Job the loss of his family members. Remember now, every single member of his family was killed in terms of children. They all were killed. The homes, the wealth that he had, all of his sheep and cattle, they were stolen from him. So there was a loss after loss after loss, and so he had to mourn these things. And so initially his friends did right. They said, man, we're not going to say anything. We're just going to sit down with our brother and just mourn with him. The Bible tells us about that. It says that rejoice with those who are rejoicing, be sad with those who are sad. In other words, we come up alongside of people in their life experience at that time. So if there's happiness, we want to learn how to cheer for them. Hey, man, praise the Lord. You've been blessed. And then there are times where they're going through great difficulties or sadness. We want to just get alongside them and be a comfort. So this idea that people can't mourn, this idea that people are quickly told oftentimes too quickly, hey man, you got to hitch up, put up the big boy shorts, big girl panties, whatever you want to say. You got to get back to it. Sometimes that's done prematurely. Okay? Because we don't know the timetable that Yahweh, Jehovah God, has set for that morning, or even has allowed for that person to mourn. We don't know. So sometimes we're too hasty to tell people, hey man, brush it off, shake it off. You got to get back in there. Don't have a pity party. Don't wallow in your sorrows. And there are truths to those things, but we have to be careful that you and I don't intercede in God's plan in the haste to see a friend or a family member come up out of their sorrowful state. There was an old commercial back when I was a young kid, a legendary actor who's long since passed, used to do a commercial, and he said the tagline of the commercial is no wine before it's time. Anybody who cooks, I'm sure a lot of you ladies are listening to this, you cook, if you put something in the oven, it's got a recipe, it says, okay, this particular item, whether it be a cake or a roast, whatever, has to bake for XYZ amount of hours or minutes. And and I've experienced myself, I'm not a big time cook, but I do a little cooking. All of us know who do cooking that if in fact you take something out of the oven or out of the frying pan or whatever it may be before the time period for it to properly cook, most likely you're going to have something that doesn't taste right. Matter of fact, it could be bad for you. Why? Because you've taken it out before the time. And so many times we're in the haste to try to make sure someone doesn't hurt, that we try to rush them through the process. We got to quickly get them done. Oh, you can't mourn. Oh, you can't stay there. But we don't know. And here's the other thing that's interesting. Jehovah God himself said that he draws nigh unto those of a contrite spirit. So in other words, the broken, the humble, the crushed. God says, I draw nigh. I get close to you. So when we're in time of mourning, that's oftentimes when God is the closest to us. Now, we feel, because we're human, that he's not close to us, and we bemoan our fate. We go, God, you leave me hung out here to dry. But no, he says that those of a contrite spirit, I'm going to draw close to them. And let's look here, even David. Now, maybe we said David was a man after God's own heart. Listen what David says when he's going through a difficulty or problem. He says this. He says, attend unto me and hear me. I mourn my complaint and make a noise. In other words, David was groaning in mourning. He's going through a difficult time. It was hard on him. He was being crushed, broken down by those things that he was going through. So he said what? He said, God, Jehovah, attend to me. See my situation. Come help me. So there's no problem. If you are having a situation, if you are in a time of mourning, no matter what you've lost, go to God and cry out to him. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I don't care if they cry to him for days on end. It doesn't matter. He will give you relief when he gives you relief. Now, I'm wrong. Please don't misunderstand. We can't let our mourning overshadow us to the point where we can't function. Let's see the difference now. Because many of you are watching are parents. Most of you, I'm sure, have jobs. You can't go onto the job and be so overwhelmed with your mourning that you can't function. You know, God does not want us to do that. We have to learn how to manage our grief, because in essence, life goes on. We can't jump into the grave with the things that we lost. We can't jump in the grave with our loved one. We can't go to the trash disposal to those things that we had to get rid of that were so near and dear to us. We can't do that. We have to continue to live on. So although we don't want anybody to put a timetable on your mourning, we don't want anybody to incorrectly pull people out of the time of mourning, because here's the time of mourning. The scriptures also tell us this. It's better for a man or woman to go into the house of mourning, to the funeral home, than to the house of mirth, to the club. He said, because see, in the house of mourning, a man, woman will stop and think to themselves about where they are in their life. Because see, when you are in a time of mourning, it also lets you know another thing, that we are not eternal in this state upon the earth. We are all mortal, and there's a time limit to everything, even our lives. And so when we go to the house of mourning, to the place of burial of the dead, it makes us stop and go, oh, hey, someday this is probably going to be me. And since we don't know the day or the hour, it makes us reflect on who we are and where we are in both in life and in our relationship to Jehovah God. So in this case, mourning is a good thing. David talked about being afflicted and how being afflicted was good for him. He said, why? Because now he could teach his brethren. I'm a living witness. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't wish what happened to me on my brother, in terms of I had 2 operations. At one point, like I said, I had to get be on a colostomy bag. So I had to mourn to some degree. I don't want to overextend this. The loss of the use of proper bowel function. It was hard. So I'm doing something strange here. But at the end of the day, it was good for me to have gone through that. Why? Because it humbled me, number one. Number two, it let me know that life is such that you can go from 0 to 100 at any time, or 100 to 0 at any time. It can happen. So we want to make sure that, in fact, that the mourning time that we go through is set up and designed for us to come out better than we went through it. And that's all I just want to encourage you. I just want to encourage you to be of the mindset to say, listen, you know what? There's a time of mourning. There's a time of reflection and sadness. I'm going to let God finish his perfect work. If you have a friend and someone you know, comfort them and be led by the Spirit. Don't try to bully them and tell them what their timetable is or how quickly they should come out of what they're coming into, because you don't know. what God is doing for that person in that hour. You don't know what he's accomplishing during that time of mourning. So that's all I just want to encourage us today. I'm going to keep the broadcast very short this morning. But I just want to again, please, ma'am, please, sir, do not let anyone put a timetable on your mourning, and then you yourselves be aware of what God is trying to do with you in that season, in that time of difficulty in your life, and let the Lord bless you and enable you to do the things that you are supposed to do, and that we'll be able to please God in every way. We really want to do. We want to make sure that we are pleasing to God and we're doing the things that God would have us to do. So again, we bless you and we thank you so much for joining the broadcast this morning. We appreciate all those of you who join us on various platforms, however you listen to it, podcast, replay, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Periscope, however you're watching. We just thank God for you so much and we appreciate you. And we just look for God to bless you real good. And really until the next time, God bless you and have a marvelous and wonderful day. All right, take care and so long. Bye-bye.